Hey guys, I'm Rar. I'm the rank 1 warrior in AAHM, basically every single season except for maybe 2 of them, pre and post Apex. I originally started off warrior tanking and I switched over to DPS. Now I'm back to tanking. This guide is going to be mainly focused towards warrior tanking, but a fair amount of it will apply to DPS as well. When you're warrior taking, the most important things are going to be holding aggro, positioning the boss correctly, keeping your attack speed buff up, and making sure that you do not die. So let's go ahead and hop into the gear. Basically for your weapon, you're going to go ahead and get double enrage. You're going to get the damage on target with most aggro towards you. You're going to get the cooldown reduction, and you're going to get the crit power. The crit power and the 6% damage, I'm not 100% sure which one's better, to be honest with you. Personally, I just believe that the crit power is better just because it increases your crit damage. The numbers are higher on your crits, I've tested it out. The damage on non-crits is going to be a little bit lower though, but non-crits already very low, and the majority of your kit that does the majority of your damage has around 100% crit rate anyways, so I go with the crit power myself. Here's the rest of the armor right here. I feel like the roles are pretty self-explanatory. For the chest and the boots, you do want to have grounded etching on them that gives endurance. Gloves and the weapon, you do want to go ahead and put in energetic. You can switch out one of the energetics for a power if you'd like to, but myself, I just prefer the attack speed. Alright, now accessories are going to be completely up to you. Personally, I use 1 crit ring and 1 crit earring, and then power the rest. You just have to make sure that you make it to plus 220 crit for D-stance tanking with a carving crystal in. The crit cap for DPSing is about plus 180. And for the etchings, you should be able to just go all power etchings. You want to be around those numbers when you are fully buffed, meaning when you're running with the Mystic, they give about 60ish crit, and when you run with the Priest, they don't give any crit at all. So when you're running with the Priest, you are going to need more crit on your gear than when you're running with a Mystic. And then these pieces are mandatory. For your weapon, you're going to use a focus crystal, a wrathful crystal, and a carving crystal. For non-slaying runs, you're going to use a pounding crystal as well, and then for slaying runs, you're going to use a slaying crystal instead of that pounding crystal. For your chest piece, you're going to use all hardy crystals, slaying or not slaying. For DPS, everything is going to stay the same, except for you're going to trade out the wrathful and the carving crystal for a bitter and a savage crystal. These are the glyphs that I use as well. When it comes to glyphing, there are a few that are mandatory, like Blade Draw, Scythe, Deadly Gamble. Overall, though, it is kind of dependent on your own playstyle, which glyphs exactly that you do want to get. Also, there is a cool bug with one of the glyphs for D-stance. You can put the Endurance glyph on, and then turn D-stance on while you're outside of a dungeon, and then walk into the dungeon, and you can take the glyph off and put on whatever you want, and it'll still have the effect of the glyph. It's just, if you take D-stance off again, then you'll have to do the bug all over again. Alright, let's get into a few things that are kind of important during rotation. Anytime that Blade Draw is off of cooldown, you need to be pressing Blade Draw. There should never be a time that Blade Draw is off of cooldown and you are not using it. At very high end on Warrior, Blade Draw is what decides the difference between a good Warrior and a bad Warrior's DPS. Your highest priority combos are going to be Blade Waltz into Blade Draw, Blade Waltz into Traverse Cut into Blade Draw, Charge into Blade Draw, and Blade Waltz into Rain of Blows. Finishers is Poison Blade into Aerial Scythe, and Poison Blade into regular Scythe. Aerial Scythe is the majority of your damage, followed by Scythe, followed by Blade Draw, followed by Blade Waltz. You always want your Scythe and Aerial Scythe to be on cooldown. There are a couple differences for Traverse Cut and Poison Blade from PC to console. Traverse Cut gives a stacking buff that gives 2.5% increased damage to your next Blade Draw per stack, Stacks 10 times, so it's 25% damage. Poison Blade also gives a 35 power buff for 6 seconds after use. That's why you need to make sure that you incorporate it into your finishers. Here's an example of an opener. You should be able to get off one aerial scythe and one regular scythe during the duration of your power buff from your Poison Blade, if you're doing it quickly enough. The last thing I want to go ahead and show here is these are your blocking skills, these are your taunts, these are your damage mitigation skills, and these are your evasion skills. Almost forgot the most important thing. Make sure that you blade waltz into 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 blade waltz into